The snow fell heavier that Christmas Eve than it had in years, blanketing the streets in silence, broken only by the crunch of footsteps and the distant laughter of families celebrating in their warm homes. Daniel, a single father, walked home from his late shift at the diner, his coat too thin to fight the biting cold. His 6-year-old son Michael was waiting for him with a small tree they had decorated with paper stars and tin foil ornaments. Money was tight, but Daniel promised himself he'd make Christmas feel magical for his boy, even if their gifts were second-hand or handmade. As he passed an alleyway near the corner store, a faint sound caught his attention. It wasn't laughter or music, it was the rustling of trash bags. He almost kept walking, but then he saw her, a tiny figure, no older than 8 or 9, digging through the garbage with trembling hands. Her coat was ripped, her shoes soaked through, and her face was streaked with tears. Daniel froze. For a moment the world blurred around him, and all he could see was that little girl. On Christmas Eve, no child should be scavenging in the cold. He stepped closer. "Hey, what are you doing out here?" The girl flinched, her wide eyes filled with fear. She clutched a bruised apple to her chest as if it were treasure. I'm just looking for food," she whispered. Daniel's heart sank. "Where are your parents?" She looked down, silent, as if the question itself was too painful to answer. Daniel couldn't leave her there. He offered his hand, but the girl hesitated. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he said softly. "Come on, you'll freeze out here." Finally, she nodded. He wrapped his scarf around her shivering body and guided her home. When Michael saw her, he blinked in surprise. "Dad, who's that?" "This is our guest," Daniel replied. "Her name is Lily." Michael, with the innocent heart only children have, smiled and said, "You can help me put the star on the tree." For the first time that night, Lily's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Two over hot cocoa?" Daniel gently asked about her family. Lily's story spilled out in broken pieces. Her mother had died the year before. Her father, well, he wasn't around anymore. Sometimes he disappeared for weeks, leaving her to fend for herself. Tonight, she had been too hungry to bear it, so she went out searching. Daniel's chest tightened. He knew the pain of abandonment. His own wife had left years ago, unable to handle the struggles of raising a child with little money. He had fought to keep Michael safe, but it hadn't been easy. Rent was late more often than not. He skipped meals so his son could eat. Yet no matter how hard things got, he never imagined leaving his child. Looking at Lily, Daniel saw both the suffering she carried and the strength it took to survive. But taking her in wasn't simple. That night, while Michael and Lily slept curled up under the same blanket by the tree, Daniel stayed awake wrestling with the reality. He was barely managing to provide for one child. How could he care for another? And yet, the thought of sending her back out into the cold broke him. The next day he called social services. He explained Lily's situation, but the woman on the line spoke with rehearsed detachment. "We'll look into it after the holidays." Unfortunately, resources are limited right now. Daniel slammed the phone down, frustrated. How could they delay? This was a child's life, so he made a choice. For as long as Lily needed him, she had a place with them. It wasn't easy. Their pantry was nearly empty, and Daniel had to work extra shifts to feed 3 mouths. Some nights, he came home exhausted, only to find Lily crying quietly in the dark, terrified she'd be sent away. He reassured her again and again, "You're safe here." Michael, in his childlike way, became her anchor. He shared his toys, made her laugh, and even gave her the wrapped drawing he'd planned to give his dad, saying, "You need a present more than me." The bond between them grew stronger each day, and soon, their small apartment felt less like a shelter for broken souls and more like a family. 2 weeks later, Daniel finally tracked down Lily's father. The man was strung out, living in a rundown building across town. He admitted he couldn't take care of her. "She's better off with you," he muttered. Before disappearing into his own shadows, Daniel knew then what he had to do. He began the process of applying for guardianship. It meant endless paperwork, background checks, and long hours convincing social workers that a struggling single dad was capable of raising 2 children. There were setbacks, moments when it seemed impossible, but Daniel refused to give up. On a crisp morning in spring, a letter arrived. His application had been approved. He had officially been granted custody of Lily. Tears blurred his vision as he hugged both children tightly. "You're my family now," he whispered. That Christmas Eve had started with despair and loneliness, but it ended with love and hope. Daniel had thought he was rescuing Lily, but in truth, she had rescued him too, reminding him of the strength of compassion, the power of kindness, and the meaning of family. And in that small, humble apartment, with two children laughing around a tree strung with paper stars, Daniel realized that Christmas wasn't about what they didn't have. It was about what they had found, each other.